Hi, everyone. I wanted to talk to you today about our latest release in Velociraptor 072. I wanted to walk through some of the new features and demonstrate some of the ease of use and workflow processes that are available in the latest release. Um, so this is just going to be a quick demo, and I'm going to go over to our GitHub website over here, and which is the GitHub Velocidex/Velociraptor, and I'm going to download the latest release, which is 072. This is a Windows machine. So just for this demonstration, I will show you how um, to use the Windows binary. So I've just downloaded that. And as you can see in our Velociraptor website over here, we have a blog post that outlines the 7.2 release. So we're just going to work through some of the new features just for demonstration. So the first thing I'm going to do is actually just run the new release in a GUI mode. So that way, I'll be able to, just as a demonstration, when we run Velociraptor GUI, we create a server and a client just locally, just for testing. So that's the ideal way for us to play with the new release. But I'm going to use a permanent data store directory, so just so that we can keep it around. Normally, otherwise it will go into the temp directory. So just start. So this is all that's required to, start up Velociraptor, and you can see that Velociraptor is coming up, and this is a test deployment with a single client and a single server. So you can see here we have a single client just running locally on this machine. So let's take a quick look. Okay, so let's look at some of the, if we click on this, then we'll go back to our website, and let's look at the 7.2 release notes, and then look at some of the interesting things that are available. So the first thing you will notice is that we have EWF support, and that's not really useful for a lot of people, but some people do still use disk images. And when you use a disk image, you normally take it with an acquisition program, and they will usually create something like an E01 or EWF type image, which is compressed. And so it's quite useful to be able to analyze those occasionally as well, as part of a wider investigation. So normally we would have a bunch of machines that are connected online and live, and then we'll have a couple of images that we need to kind of analyze as well as part of the deployment. And this release makes it much, much easier to analyze because we support the E01 file format directly. So we don't need to convert it. Like in previous releases, we had to convert to a DD image, which was a bit more complicated. So just to explain how this works, I have a little image here for a demonstration. It's a small image, but usually the images will be much larger than that. And the way this works is that we generally create a remapping file, and what that does is it starts up a client, so that which is a whole new client, but it looks like that client is operating from the disk image rather than the live client. So then we can join it to our deployment. I'll just demonstrate that. So the first thing we need to do is create that remapping file. And let me just download. Okay, and the command to do that is dead disk, as you can see up here, and -- add Windows disk, because we're just going to add a new disk. There's the disk, and we're going to create a remapping file, remap.yaml, let's say. And now I also add the -v flag for me to be able to see more messages, so it's more verbose. And as you can see, what it does is it automatically detects that there is, a Windows directory in there and creates the remapping file. Let's have a look at what the remapping file looks like, just for interest's sake. And you can see that it has some directives in it that tell Velociraptor to create a remap. You can read more about remapping in the documentation here under forensic analysis, searching file names, and remapping accesses. There is a full documentation here if you were interested in it, but in this case, we just need to see that there is a remapping rule that says mount this disk image under the C drive. So whenever the client will try and access the C drive, it's really looking inside of this E01 file, and so on. And similarly for registry hives and so on. So this is just a way of automatically creating that remapping file. Later on, we'll see how we can do it manually. And once we created that remapping file, then we can launch a client against this server and tell it to use that remapping file so it can pretend to be running from that, from that, oops, yeah, from that image. So the command for doing that is so get rid of that. Okay, and we're going to use remap for this, which tells it to use that remapping file that overrides the config. We still need to use the config file from our database, data store. So this client data store. So this config file is what's required to connect to this particular server. Then we're going to use -v client that tells it to become a client. And finally, I have this command here, which makes it use a different write-back file. So the write-back file contains the identity of the client, so it will have a different identity than the one that's already running. So it's just overriding this one client write-back. Actually, this is the Windows, so we need to use the Windows location. And let's just give it users, administrators, images. We'll just put it here. Image, disk one, write back. Yeah. Okay, and this basically tells it to use that as a different write back file, and that becomes like a new identity for that client. So when we start this, then it will actually start like a full client, but it will look like that client is using that E01 file. So if we have hunts or anything like that we use for the other clients, they will automatically be applied against that E01 file. So if we go over here and search again for all the clients, then we'll see the new client coming up, and it will have a host name, which is like sort of made up, virtual host name, because we don't really know the host name of the image, right? And then we can just click on it and use it as if it was the image. So we can, for instance, look at the VFS and interact with it. So what we're doing now is we're interacting with the client, but instead of the client running on the system, it's actually just running off the image, the disk image. So the same kind of artifacts that we could, use, that we could do with a live client, we can do with that to a degree, right? So obviously we can't do things like listing processes or WMI queries or anything like that because it's just an image, right? It doesn't have that, but we can do things like parse registry, parse files, etc., and also navigate it and things like that. So we can sort of look through the different users and look at end user data, things like that. Okay, so that is a pretty cool way of using remapping to look at the different images. We can actually also use remapping for other things. And this is the second feature that I wanted to talk about, is to allow clients to use SSH accessors. So just like here, we used the E01 image to work from. We can actually also use an SSH accessor to work with a remote system in the same way. And why would you need to use that? Because sometimes we can't install an agent on the endpoint that we actually want to investigate because, maybe it's some weird operating system, or it's really locked down, or we don't have a client that can run on that system because maybe it's embedded, or an edge device, or a VPN, or, a hypervisor type bare bones system or something like that. So we might have secure shell access, but we don't have the ability to actually run a proper client on there because we don't support that. So we can actually do the same kind of thing, but we can use remapping. And in this case, what we can say is whenever you want to access the file system, then use SSH accessor instead of the real accessor. And so the same kind of thing. So let's give that as an example. So we can just copy that configuration file, and let's stop that client for a second, and let's create an SSH remap file. Yes, and so what this does, I just copied that from the blog post. Is it basically sets these credentials in the remap file, so we can replace those for a different machine. 192.153, and in this case, we're going to use. So you should normally use a private key, but in this case, we'll use a password just for demonstration. But don't do that, in reality, obviously. But you can use the private key as well. And we'll just update this. Okay. And what this does is it basically says whenever Velociraptor client wants to use the auto accessor, which is the default accessor for files, then instead of that, just use the SSH. So it substitutes. That's what remapping does. It substitutes the different accesses. So anyway, we can do the same thing here. And just like before, where we ran the E01 accessor, what we're going to do now is just run maybe the SSH accessor instead. We still use the same config, and let's this time just use a different writeback so we can have a different identity for this client. Okay, and so when we start it up, it will start a whole new client, and instead, maybe that machine doesn't use it. Let's try localhost. Okay. We obviously have to have access to the remote machine as well. Okay, let's try this again. Okay, cool. So now we're just connecting over SSH to the local machine, but there's actually a VM running on here. So let's have a look at the clients. And we have this new machine called remote SSH, and that is the one using the SSH mapping. So let's have a look at it, and we'll just access the files on it. And as you can see, it's kind of like a Unix kind of machine. And every time we are accessing that machine, we're actually using the SSH accessor to get at those files. So it's the same thing as the E01. We can't use necessarily things like process listing and things like that because we don't have the ability to run programs on that machine, but we can look at files. And on things like Unix machines, Linux machines, it's pretty common to look at proc and things like that. So for instance, like if we wanted to run mounts to look at the different mounts, then that would work because it just looks at files, in proc and so on. So there we go. So we can see all the different, this is WSL machines. So its all the mounts and things like that. So we can do things like, parse event logs and do our normal investigations as long as we are accessing files. Okay, so cool. So that is a useful feature, being able to investigate edge devices that don't necessarily have a supported operating system. So now I would like to talk with you about the next set of changes in 0.7.2, which are GUI related. And I'm very excited about this because they make the interaction with the analyst much smoother, and it makes it much more powerful to use the UI to quickly identify sources of compromise and doing our initial investigation really quickly. So the first thing that I wanted to talk about was this inbuilt stacking support. And stacking is a really common operation that we do in the FIR, which involves basically just looking at the things that are common and the things that are uncommon, on a system. And by doing that, we can usually identify very quickly the things that kind of stand out that are not usual on the system. And so it really gives us a very quick lead to start our investigation and identify problems on the endpoint. So to demonstrate this operation, I'm going to use the new Sigma support to be able to run Sigma rules against the endpoints just for the demonstration purposes. But stacking can be used for lots and lots of different ways. So this is just one example. It's a good example, but you could use stacking for lots of things. So let me just go back to my Windows machine here. So here's my Windows machine here. And I'd like to run Sigma rules against it. Now, Sigma is a way of specifying detection rules, right? A lot of detection rules. Normally, Sigma runs on seams, and it runs on the back end with big databases, data mining type things, on top of forwarded events that are forwarded from the endpoint. But in Velociraptor, we actually have a project for managing the Sigma rules and then running them on the event log files directly on the system. And that's the curated Sigma artifacts. So if we just look for server artifacts with Sigma, then we can see that it allows us to import the curated Sigma. So it's kept in a separate project. Let me just show you the project here. Visit that. It's got an interesting, there's a blog post that explains the project and so on, but the gist of it is that it just maintains a bunch of Sigma rules taken from various sources, especially the Hayabusa project, which is really great for doing this, again, similar sort of idea of applying Sigma rules to the endpoint. But we can basically import that Sigma rules into the server. So let me just click on that and configure parameters and upload. We just want to get the rule set, right? So we just launch that and off we go. So and so what it does is it basically reaches out to that Sigma project and grabs the latest rule set. Okay, so that's cool. So now if we go back to our endpoint, then we should be able to collect the Sigma rules on the endpoint. Now Sigma has the Sigma rules. Let me just show you Sigma. Okay, and this is the Hayabusa set from taken from the Hayabusa project. And there are really a lot of rules, like thousands of rules from the Hayabusa project. And they're sort of sorted into different rule levels, critical to all, and rule status can be stable to tested and experimental and so on. And it really depends on what you're trying to achieve. If you want something that is really focused on detection, then you'd probably want to get things that are relatively, like stable. So stable means that they don't have too many false positives kind of thing. But in this case, because I really don't know what's going on the system, this is my first initial thing. Like I'm just gonna grab all the rules because it's better to be sort of safe than sorry kind of thing. So a lot of these rules are going to be really, really noisy and have a lot of detections. But I'm going to show you how with stacking, we can use that. So anyway, off we go. So what this will do is it will reach out to the endpoint, upload these rules and start doing the Sigma processing. But the Sigma processing is done on the endpoint itself instead of, on the backend seam. And you can see what it's doing. It's loaded several thousand rules, and it's got 43 log sources because we basically chose all the rules here. So there's a lot of log sources. Log sources in Sigma are like event logs or things like that. And so you can see that the Velociraptor starts to immediately open up these different event logs and starts to consume events from them. And then, then it runs them through the rules. You can see that, it consumed several thousand messages, and have 2 rules here and 29 rules here, and so on and so forth. And it does that in parallel and just kind of like gets all the rules. And you can see here that all the hits are coming back. There's going to be thousands and thousands of hits from the different log sources, and this kind of like what they look like. They'll have, timestamp, computer channel, and they have level is other information, but the title of the rule is really like which rule matched, and then we have details more about this particular match. So because we turned on all the rules, there are lots and lots of sort of noisy rules here. So generally speaking, this will take, a few minutes, but we can actually start analysis straight away. So I'm just going to start analysis right away just to show you guys how to kind of handle these kind of rules. And remember that the point of this is that what we're trying to do is we are really trying to kind of get an idea of what's going on here. So we're kind of like going fishing, right? So we're running all these rules, and maybe one of them is going to trigger something interesting. So we're trying to just get an idea. It's like our initial, triage. So what we would do is we can go into a notebook, and that allows us to analyze the data. So what I'm going to do is, by default, let me just make that font a little bit bigger. Okay. By default, you can see that it just grabs the first 50 rows, but let me just get all of them. So I'm just going to just do that first. And this is a notebook, so it allows me to run arbitrary VQL so I can, post-process it. But this new feature that I'm talking about now is the ability to do stacking. And we used to do things like this, right? So we used to, if we had all of the things, and then we used to do this group by title, right? And then, and then we would do things like, count as count, right? And that's still useful, by the way. But so that would just basically tell us, oh, okay, look, this rule, hit this many times, right? And then this rule hit this many times. And that's kind of the first step of stacking, is to figure out like which rules are common, which rules are false positives, which rules are not. But now I have a problem because like let's say I wanted to look at, all the events that hit this rule, then well, it doesn't show me because it's sort of grouped them and folded them into like accounts. So it does, but it doesn't actually show me all the hits, and for example, this one has, 9,000 hits and so on. So now I would have to go and do a second step, and then just go like where, title matches. So I keep having to do this, right? And so that will be, so let's say I wanted to just, look at the PowerShell ones, and then I'll have to do it again, right? And see it's doing this filtering again. And so I've got, okay, my, rules that hit that, so I can review those, and that's great. But then, and then I'm like, oh, I want to go and do the group by again. So every time it's kind of confusing, right? And not ideal. So in this release, what we decided to do is to actually add the group by workflow directly into the UI. So that way I don't have to kind of like go backwards and forwards and, change the VQL and so on. And I'll just show you how this works. It's very easy to do. So basically, when you think about it, when I want to do group by, I want to see all the related rules together, right? So you see how here I've got some PW engine started, and then I've got some other rule that happen to match, and then another rule, but there's more PW shell engine started and so on. So what I wanted to actually really do is I just want to start off by sorting these titles. And when I sort the titles, they all kind of are going to go in order. So when you think about it, when you sort by column, then all the related things that have the same, value in the column, they go together, right? Because they're sorted. So when I hit sorting, I've sort of almost got like halfway through my stacking, right? Because all of the same rules, they're together because we're sorted. So then the UI, once we stored something, then the UI can then just do the stacking by itself. And now we'll have a new button here, which is allowing us to click on the stacking. So we'll click on that, and it will basically when it sorts, it keeps the statistics on like how many things matched, and and re-indexes them. So now we can see that, like, for example, this DNS query matched, a lot of times. And, and so like that rule matched a lot. So if we click on that little button here, that will just take us straight into that part in the table. And we can see all of the exact, DNS queries are matched, and so on, right? And so we can inspect to see, okay, this rule fired many times, and let's see whether, it's a high valued rule. It's actually not. This is a very noisy rule. So it doesn't really add a lot of information. And then we can, normally with stacking, we want to go back to the least likely, events so that we can see the ones that are kind of stand out as are unusual. And so when we go to the low count, that shows us straight away interesting stuff, antivirus hack tool detection. So we can jump straight to that. And it's telling us, oh, we saw Mimikatz on this system that's been picked up by the Windows Defender, right? Well, that's straight away a very important, piece of information, and so on. So basically, we can look through the different low frequency events. Here we go. We have PS exec tool execution. So that doesn't happen often on this system. It happens very rarely. So that rule firing is quite a significant event. And so we can go back and look at our timestamp and say 2 weeks, 14 hours ago, this event happened. It's very unusual, very suspicious. We already have our, initial, idea. And you can see that once this stacking has happened, then it's very, very quick to just jump into, the different events so we can, look at the totals, the sum totals, and then look at specifics, that occurred. So that's stacking. It's extremely powerful technique, and it not only just works on Sigma, it works on many other different types of tables. And in fact, it's just a GUI feature, so it'll work on anything, on any column. We can stack on any column we want. In this case, it makes more sense to stack on the rule titles. So that's cool. So that's stacking, and that's actually a really cool feature. And I mean, we still would do these kind of things, but it's much more, interesting. Okay, so this is stacking. The other cool feature that I really love about the new notebook is undo and redo support. And that is really important because in Velociraptor, we often go down the rabbit hole, so to speak. We look at different things, we try out different things, and it's often interesting to see, different approaches. So for instance, in this case, we wanted to, let's say that we wanted to look at, for this example, let's say, we'll just stay with this example. Let's say we want to look at DNS queries. So that's fine. And so we might want to write a query like select star from source where title matches. And we're only really going to look at this PowerShell engine started title, let's say. Here. There. Oops. Let's do this. PowerShell engine started. Okay, so that gives us only those rules. So let's go. Now let's say that we want to do more of a deep dive into it and say, okay, well, why? Actually, this doesn't give us a lot of information. I should choose a different one. Sorry. Let's go back to this guy. The DNS one was a good one. DNS query, that's what I meant. DNS query. DNS query. Okay, great. So we wanted to examine the DNS query. So let's say that, we start off with looking at all the DNS queries, because there's thousands of them in this one, because this is a very common rule. But let's say we wanted to, really deep dive into it. So you can see that the DNS queries occur from many different domains and many different processes. And so now we can further drill into it and say, okay, well, let's look at what DNS queries does, let's say Velociraptor.exe does, right? So then we can, add and details matches Velociraptor. Okay, so that's going to narrow down our 33,000 hits to, maybe a fewer hits. So then we can say, well, is that a suspicious, thing? So now that's going to narrow it down further, right? So we're going down into the process. Okay, so we've got, well, a lot less events. So let's say we examine those and we are like, okay, well, that's fine. But now we want to go back to the previous view to look at all the results. But we actually, can't. We have to go back and recalculate this query again to remove that condition and so on. So this is an example of this workflow where we kind of like dig in, and but then we want to back out a bit. So this is where undo comes perfectly. So if I click undo here, it basically undoes the last query and brings us to the way it was before, right? So now we can see all the different ones. So for example, like here's another process, background download. So now let's say that we wanted to, inspect that one better. So we'll go forwards, and then we just, let's say we swap it from here to here. So then we'll go back. When we recalculate it, then we're gonna, zero in on this particular process, and it has a lot less, rows. So we can, inspect it, and now we can, go back again, right? So we can go back to the original one, look at the data, and so you see that each time I go forwards and backwards, I don't really need to recalculate anything. I just look at the previous results, and then I can go forwards to the next results, and backwards and so on. So every time I go backwards, it's another version. So this is actually really useful to be able to, kind of undo and redo queries, especially ones that are very expensive, take a long time to do, then we don't have to redo them all the time. Okay, hunt view is now page, so that just means that the hunt view here can handle large number of hunts. The next interesting thing that I wanted to show you guys is about secret management. And that's a big feature in 7.2. So secret management is to do with how we manage secrets, like passwords, for different things. So we've seen before how, we might have to use a password, like, in the, when we did our remapping rule, we have some username and password. So if we wanted to let a user maybe use this with a notebook, let's say. So let's say that we want to create a notebook here. So let's just do a new notebook. Okay. And let's say that we wanted in this notebook to actually connect to this, right? So we can say from globes equals, let's just do a star, and then access their SSH. So in this case, this query, what we're doing is we're doing like a query where we use the SSH accessor to go and connect to this machine, and then list the directory. So we could do that in a notebook, right? So here's our output. So this is just the same as what we did before with the client, but we can do it interactively in a notebook. It's just an example. But you see that we need to have these credentials here, right? So basically we need to put them in the VQL. So when you're running an artifact and then you have to put the credentials in the VQL, it makes it very hard to protect those credentials, because I can use these login credentials to do anything really now. And it's very hard to kind of hide them. And it's also complicated to use, because I need to know, okay, username and password isn't too bad, but something like S3 bucket, you might have a lot of different things like a token and a region and a bucket name. And so there's a lot of parameters, and it's just hard to manage all of these things. So what we've got here in 072 is the ability to treat secrets like these credentials natively. So secrets are built in. And let me show you how to do that. So I'm just going to open that in a new link. So when we go over to the welcome page here, there is a new option here, Manage Service Secrets. So let's click on that. And there are different types of secrets that are, appropriate for different things. In this case, I'm just going to show you the example of SSH. And you can see that there are different, I will choose the SSH secret here, and I will add a new secret. So this is the type, and I'll add a new secret. And so it says, okay, these are the different types of parameters that we need. So the first thing I'm going to do is add the name of the secret. And because this one is logging into, Mix account, so I'm just going to call it Mix SSH, right? So it's Mick. And then the host name is localhost on port 22. Password Mick, username Mick. Okay, so it's exactly the same as what we had before, except that it's now managed inside of this secret. So once I save it, now I have that secret, and now I have to permit a user to use that secret in their VQL. So I'm just going to, add it and add the admin user to be authorized to use this secret. So now the admin user can use this secret. Okay, so now inside of this, let's reshape that. Inside of this VQL, I can just remove all of that and then just access the secret by name. Okay, so the secret is going to be Mick, and that already contains all the details, the passwords and so on. And you see it's going to still work, but this way I've basically allowed someone to use the secret. So I'm controlling access, but it's not only about controlling access, it's also just making it much, much easier to use, because all of the details about, the passwords and the usernames and the locations and all that is all embedded inside of this name. And so I'll just say, just use this name and it works. And so it makes it a lot easier to manage secrets and passwords. Okay, so that's secret management. It's a pretty cool new feature. And the other things I'm just going to, just talk about, we have a new kind of communication protocol based on WebSockets. So that's actually a lot more efficient than the previous HTTP type communication. And all you have to do to turn it on is just use WSS instead of HTTPS. So it's actually super easy. And it works better with things like load balancers and reverse proxies and things like that. Okay, so and then dynamic DNS providers. For those of you who have watched the training videos, we show how to use the DynDNS so that we don't have to buy static IP addresses for cloud providers. But and then at the time we used Google domains for all of our DNS needs. But then Google suddenly shut down the dynamic DNS, well, the whole DNS business. So so then we can't use that. And so this release, we've decided to switch to Cloudflare as our preferred dynamic DNS provider. And so this, if you are interested in that, you can look here at how to set up dynamic DNS on Cloudflare. We also support no IP as well, and potentially others. If you guys all want, then let me know. Send a feature request, and we can add that. The other cool thing is that a lot of people wanted more complex proxy configurations. And so we actually have more complicated proxy settings now, where we can do things like use different proxies in different situations. But the most exciting part of that is that now we are able to use pack files, which are proxy auto configuration files, which a lot of corporate networks use. And it never really used to support them because they are actually JavaScript, but we do now. So we can actually do some very interesting stuff with that. I'll leave that to you guys. The other interesting feature is the backups. So we can actually we do create periodic backups of important metadata. on the server because we found that sometimes people had like accidents like the disk was full or data loss or whatever, where they would lose these important metadata around hunts, around labels that are applied to clients, things like that. So we've actually added automatic backup methods, and they're actually also available through VQL, so you can create a backup anytime you want. So I'll just show you guys how to do that. It's very simple. Select start from backup, and it takes one parameter, which is the name of the backup. So we'll just call it my backup. Okay, and you can see that it will create a backup inside of the data store directory. And it basically just backs up different metadata type things, and you can also restore from that. And that, if you don't do this manually, it does it every day anyway. It only takes a few milliseconds, but it actually can really help in cases where there is data loss because the disk is too full, because that happens a lot. So so that is something to look forward to. Then we have some more interesting stuff. macOS, we finally added memory access and some HTTP client accesses and so on, compile rules and so on. The last part that I wanted to talk about is the registry hunter, which is a whole other project that was launched with 7.2, which is designed to streamline access to the Windows registry. So let me just click on that and go to this other blog post about the registry hunter and talk about registry hunting, like just basically parsing registry. And it all started because the registry contains a lot of very interesting information, very relevant forensically, and people were writing VQL that was important, trying to get specific pieces of information from the registry. And so there was just a lot of little VQL little artifacts that just collected, maybe one key from here, one key from there, and did some parsing and so on. And so we wanted to really kind of consolidate all of these things into a one-shot artifact that you just don't even have to think about. You just shoot it at the registry and just get all the data that you can at once without having to think about it. And then you can sift through it later and get relevant information really quickly. So kind of like Sigma for the registry kind of idea, or something like that. And so there's a couple of interesting challenges from. So this blog actually really just talks about the mechanics of how this works. But I don't want to talk too much about it. I just want to just show you. It's easier to show than to talk about it. So the same thing, if you want to do that, then we're going to look at a server artifact that imports from the registry. So it imports the registry hunter. And it's kind of the same thing as the Sigma one from before. We just collected. And this one doesn't actually take any parameters because it just imports that one artifact. And it goes off and imports that one artifact. We can see the information here, and we've got the reference to the Registry Hunter project, which is a different project. But basically, it's very easy to use. All we do is we basically go off to the host that we want, or we can do a hunt or whatever. And then we just collect it, just like anything else. Registry Hunter. Okay, there it is, Registry Hunter. And if we look at the parameters, so it's kind of like the Sigma one. It has a lot of different categories. And it basically, these are all different categories and it consists of rules. Let me just quickly show you registry. Actually, it's in here. Go back to here. Here. Let me just quickly show you the code. So it basically, this project consists of rules, and we've used a lot of rules from this other project, RACMD batch, which is a crawl project, which has a lot of interesting rules about searching for the registry and so on. So we do use a lot of these rules, but you see that a lot of them are just basically looking at specific keys and locations. So there's just like hundreds of rules about different things, but also there are some customized parsing for different things as well. So it's often not enough to just look at keys, because you often need to interpret the keys and parse them and so on. So there's a lot more. So we basically, wrapping VQL with the parsing. But in terms of using it, it's super easy. We're just going to choose all of them because, why not? And then just go, right? So it actually takes, seconds. Actually, what I want to do is you can also, when you configure the parameters, you can also choose to actually grab the hives as well. So this is useful because you get the raw data as well as parsing it. So if I just tick that, let me just do that. So it will go off and parse it, and then also just fetch the files themselves. And so we can, look at them later as well. But you can see that straight away we're returning like 9,000 hits, because there are so many rules, you know, that run on this thing. You can see that it just does this big glob and looks for all those sort of keys at once and then parses them. So let's go back and look at our notebook. And you can see that the default notebook kind of breaks them by category, and you can look at the different categories if you want. But I'm just going to do the same thing as I did before with stacking. I'm just going to look at all the results like here, and then it will basically show me from all the different rules, and then I'm going to stack by category. So again, I'm going to do this, and that's going to sort it by category, and then I'm going to stack. And then I'll look at different types of, so this is the event logs, the devices, user activity. Like for instance, if I wanted to see user activity type related to type rules, then it shows me like OpenSave PID, will query, things like that. So it basically like groups all the related categories together. And so I can, depending on the investigation, depends on what I wanted to look for. There's also one that's like threat hunting, which looks at sort of detection type things, like if I have rclone installed, or, if it's in the compatibility assistant, then that's actually kind of a bad sign, because, could have been, ransomware or whatever. Right? So, and then, things to do with, RDP are also counted as threat hunting and 7-zip and things like that. So this allows me to use stacking to quickly narrow down the registry. But you can see that it's really based around this project is based around usability. I just want to kind of like just throw that at the endpoint, bring stuff back, and I'm going to sort through it later. And the way that the output is structured is basically like sort of like, so it's sort of like a like a rule-based thing. And so I can quickly, look at things like, for example, like the task, the auto runs, all together. So I can see all the different tasks that are running. And you'll also notice in this new release that when we are showing, let me just hide some of these other columns, so it just looks a bit better. When we're showing complex JSON objects now, we have a new JSON viewer, as you can see, and it's a little bit easier to use because it only shows the first few rows. And when you have many rows after that, then it adds another link here, so we can now click on that, and it will open it in a dialog box with all the rows, so that we can actually also search and filter by this. So it's really helpful for showing very large JSON objects with lots of arrays, big arrays. So yeah, and then you can see that these information has been parsed out of the this is the tasks, task list, scheduled tasks. So it's part of the scheduled tasks from the registry. So again, this one is about streamlining the process and being able to be more effective and quicker. We can do a quick hunt, and it's actually really super fast, like less than 10 seconds to just grab all the data out of the registry and upload the hives and be done. So this is the last interesting feature that I wanted to talk about with the 7.2 release. Please, check it out if you're interested in using Velociraptor, and provide feedback. uh, I encourage you to take Velociraptor for a spin. Also jump on our Discord, go to our Discord here, or mailing list, and file any issues on the GitHub page. So thanks for listening, and yeah, happy forensicing.